What's up, world? I'm Matt Newberg from Hungary, and this is The Feed. Each episode, we'll dive into conversations with the industry insiders who are leveraging technology to shape the way we eat. On today's episode of The Feed, I sat down with Dante DiCicco, founder and CEO of Zitti, a company on a mission to bring radical transparency to the $300 billion wholesale restaurant industry while streamlining vendor payments for operators. In this episode, we'll talk about the current inefficiencies of pen and paper restaurant procurement, the competitive landscape of back-of-house technology companies, and the massive opportunity to create a comprehensive inventory, ordering, and accounts payable solution for small and medium-sized restaurants. All right, Dante, it's awesome to have you here. Really excited to dig into Zitti. Great name, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I keep thinking about the Ghostface Killer line about Zitti. I don't remember it exactly, but okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about your background. Really fascinating. You started in finance, moved over to Snap, led a big team there, and then you got into your family's pizzeria called DiCicco's after your last name.
Yep, in Fresno, California.
I love these stories, so I want to definitely spend some time going into that and like kind of how that kind of sparked that idea for Zitti.
Absolutely. Yeah. So little bit of, so kind of like got like the personal background, the professional background, and starting Zitti was really the convergence of all that. So on a personal level, my father's family are Italian immigrants. We're from a very small mountain village in Abruzzo called Pacentro. Still go there every summer. My sister's getting married there in September.
Parli Italiano?
Un poco. Parlo un poco Italiano.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they found their way to Fresno, California, Central California, opened the first DiCicco's Italian restaurant in 1956. There's since, over the years, probably been about 20 restaurants open across our extended family. Most of them are called DiCicco's, but some folks have branched out and opened other concepts, and most of them are in Central California as well. So I grew up from ages 0 to like 18 when I left for college, in the restaurant all the time. My dad still is in the restaurant to this. I actually talked to him on the way over here, and he was in the restaurant when I was talking to him. So it's very much a deeply ingrained part of mine, my siblings' life. My cousins grew up working in there from as early as like age 10 or something like that. Then went to undergrad at Stanford. Was first my dad's line of the family to graduate from college. And then after college, ended up doing investment banking in New York for 4 years. But some of my buddies from college were starting at the time a little-known social media app called Snapchat. And in early 2015, Snapchat was just fresh off of turning down the Facebook offer for $3 billion. And it was really exciting that they did that. It showed how much faith that Evan and Bobby had in the company, but then also they need to build a business and start generating revenue. So they were starting to build out and round out their business team. They hired the former global head of tech banking at Credit Suisse to come and be the chief strategy officer at Snap. And it was at that time where I was working at BlackRock, and Evan, the CEO, connected me with the new chief strategy officer. I became one of his first hires, started out in corporate strategy, early business hire at Snap in early 2015. That started a 7-year journey of doing many things throughout the company. Felt like my role almost ended up being the only person at the company doing a new function. And then once that function got traction, built an entire global team around that. So started out doing media partnerships in the US, then ended up leading international growth for our ad business, worked on the IPO. Definitely a roller coaster in the best of ways.
It's a wild ride.
Over that time. But then totally separately back at home, there had not been a new DiCicco's Italian restaurant open in about 25 years. And I felt very strongly in carrying on the family's legacy. And Fresno is, it's not the most well-known city in California, but it is booming. There's just farmland everywhere. And, in the Bay Area in Southern California, land is limited. And in Fresno, it's just in abundance. So a lot of new areas and pockets popping up. And so my dad always said to me, if I were ever to open a new location, it would be in this area, right? And that was kind of like a little bug he kind of planted in my ear for a couple of years. And then finally in 2019, my later years at Snap, I decided to do that as a side project, a small little side project.
So you're still at Snap at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
I was at Snap until the end of 2021. So In 2019, I went in. I was the sole financer and developer of a new DiCicco's Italian restaurant.
Okay.
We built the building from scratch, and really, my and my family's vision for it was same exact menu as the other restaurants. Stick with what works. There's a lot of brand recognition in town for DiCicco's, but wanted the actual building and experience to be more modern. So you still have the red and white checkered tablecloths,
Love it.
but it feels a little bit more like you're in maybe on Abbot Kinney or up in Santana Row in San Jose or something like that. So kind of mixing the old school with the new school.
Okay.
COVID happened in between all that, right? Because
wow.
I started in 2019. So that became a little mini roller coaster in and of itself. And it's one thing when your parents are running a restaurant and you have all these ideas of how to do things differently and you're voicing it to them, but it's ultimately their decision to make. It's another thing when it's your own spot, right? And my family members were helping me out in getting it going, but I ultimately could exert some creative control there. So I was looking at our tech stack, and I say tech stack is a generous way to put all the piles of paper invoices and physical checks that are being written. And so at first I was a bit surprised, blown away at how little tech there was on the back of house, because I'm coming at it from a tech mindset, and I'm more like, this is literally how the business is run. Like the food in the front of house is that's the consumer side, that's kind of the sexy side of the restaurant business, but how the business is actually run operationally is on the back of house. Yeah. There was no tech there, whereas on the front of house, you were using a POS system, we're using all the delivery apps, you've got the digital, open table, Resi, all that stuff. So the first thing that caught my attention was the lack of technology, and I was getting quite annoyed by that in my journey of opening my own. Then we started looking at, okay, who are our food suppliers, right? Who is actually delivering the food to our doorstep? And this was all a new, experience for me. And I'm like, okay, as a restaurant, we're buying from distributors. Distributors are ultimately buying from the end suppliers or manufacturers of the food. And then we're looking and seeing that the exact same food products carried by multiple distributors can vary in price wildly. And so if you're not paying close to, like we're talking like potentially 50% or more. So if you're not, for the same case of San Marzano tomatoes or something like that. So if you're not closely monitoring that and optimizing that, you're leaving a lot of money on the table in an already thin margin business. So that kind of combination of experiences of frustration with lack of tech, and then also feeling like there was a bit of lack of transparency and lack of fairness in how food was priced. That as a steady drip over 2 years really inspired me to leave Snap and start Zitti and really try to solve this problem for the industry.
Amazing. Love it. I love that you really cut your teeth in this and found the problem like a true entrepreneur. Yeah. A lot of people parachute into this funny world of food tech with this tech mindset, and it's helpful to have like a fresh perspective, but they have no like operational experience working in a restaurant, Right. So it's refreshing to get. I love these stories where people have like somehow stumbled into this food tech world via the traditional restaurant route. Yeah, absolutely. And
there's almost 1 million restaurants in the United States, so it's just unbelievably diverse. Yeah. No two restaurant groups are the same. So while there's similar themes that resonate throughout the industry, that's when you're building your own company around it. Then it's like, okay, now we got to identify the different types of restaurants, different types of companies. How is this same problem affecting different restaurant groups in different ways, and looking to solve around that.
Awesome. Love the modern red sauce. I'm a huge red sauce guy. We can talk about that.
Red sauce is the core ingredient in literally everything. So
love it. It's going through my veins right
absolutely.
Now. Okay, so let's talk about the problem. Let's dive into, invoicing, managing food costs, inventory. How has this problem evolved over time with pen and paper? And let's just kind of talk about some of the big challenges with the lack of tech in the back of house.
Yeah, absolutely. So the initial thing, like I mentioned, the initial thing that caught my eye was the lack of tech there. And so we were spending a lot of time fielding paper invoices from all these suppliers and distributors. Some of them, you have your Cisco's and US Foods, the bigger folks use more modern tools, they're sending you an invoice
EDI.
over, EDI, sending you the invoices over PDF. They have like ACH withdrawals and stuff like that. But then a lot of the smaller folks, your local produce supplier or cheese supplier or something like that, is giving you a physical piece of paper and expecting you to write a paper check back. So even if you have some of the bigger folks doing things in a more modern way, if you have 10 to 12 supplier partners and only 3 or 4 are doing things in a modern way, you're still spending all that time doing all that manual work. So the need for a universal payment system to consolidate everything in the cloud and just streamline everything was the first thing we wanted to tackle. And I really felt that, okay, this is such a massive problem. To get our arms around this problem, we need to consolidate everything, consolidate all this information, digitize it, which is a clear time saver for the restaurant. But then in doing that, we're going to get a lot of valuable data in exchange for that. And then we can look and see, how can we take the next step in solving the problem in a more deeper way by saving them money on top of saving them time. And so that was what really inspired Zitti's order guide product, because we were running payments, saving these guys a lot of time. And we were sitting on a trove of invoice data. And that's when we were seeing these trends of, like I mentioned earlier, like the exact same case of avocados or type of provolone cheese, or even just something as commoditized as lettuce or olive oil or something like that, made by the same brand, vary in price just wildly from invoice to invoice. And so we then started doing some discovery, talking to restaurant operators and asking them, well, how do you solve for this? And answers we got were either, I don't solve for it. I kind of know I'm getting hosed on price, but I just don't have the time to put into it. Or other folks are more like, no, I literally take 2 hours on a Sunday away from my family to sit down and try to price compare on spreadsheets or something like that, which has limited, ability to help, because if you're dealing with hundreds of products for your restaurant, how many can you realistically do in one sitting? And prices are also dynamically changing every single day. So just doing it every single Sunday may not necessarily have the impact you need it to have if you're ordering on Thursday.
And you're not going to necessarily see all the distributors. You're only maybe price shopping 1 or 2 other ones probably.
Exactly. So that kind of that journey of kind of having our initial wedge in of let's help to digitize this back of house process, and then the insights we gained from that allowed us to do some more discovery. Of course, having multiple DiCicco's Italian restaurant locations as the first users of Zitti was tremendously helpful, because we got to test everything on them. Right. A lot of the things that some of our customers today are seeing were born in a much more rough, duct taped together way by DiCicco's first, and we kind of perfected it there.
You dog fooded.
Yes, absolutely.
Your own Zitti.
Yes, precisely.
Love it. Okay, so let's hear the official pitch. You have these 2 products. You started with payments. Now you have order guides as well. Just give us the simple pitch that you go into to operators with, and talk about those 2 products and what they solve for.
Yeah, so the very simple message to an operator is, we can help you reduce your food costs substantially by comparing and optimizing your food prices. That's the primary. That's hook. The primary.
It's 3% of your
3% of your food costs minimum, right? And that is we just keep it very simple, very high level on that side.
Who can say no to that?
Exactly. There's obviously a lot of details to dig into that on how it's executed, and we want to tailor around their business, but on the highest of level, we keep it very simple, saying we could help save 3% of your food costs, likely more, by helping you to price compare. And then when you go a level deeper, well, how does that work? Well, we then take inventory of all your food products. So let's say you're, Matt's Deli in LA, right? And you have a pretty robust menu. You do a bunch of different sandwiches, and you offer some cool sides and stuff. And so let's say you have 100 food products that you're buying on a weekly basis. And let's say you're placing 3 different orders a week. So we would take all those 100 products, line them up. Then each distributor that you could be working with, so let's say you're working with 5 distributors, each one of those could call the exact same product something different, right? So the same type of provolone cheese made by the same manufacturer will have a completely different name or nomenclature from distributor to distributor. So we have a database on the back end that's essentially connecting all those.
A many to one. Many
exactly.
To,
so
many
you
to
get, so you basically have to build your own Zitti product catalog, and then you got to connect those there. And then some distributors may define a case as 2 pounds, other may define a case as 2.5 pounds, other may define a case as 3 pounds. So there's a lot of conversions you have to do there, and then ultimately the UI UX needs to be good because a restaurant operator doesn't have time to be going through something that's overly complicated. So we need to take all that information, distill it down into a super easy to use way. The prices we provide restaurants are all in real time. So when they're looking at the Zitti order guide, they know exactly where prices are at across distributors for the products they're ordering in that moment. We've since, as we've kind of gotten bigger and gotten more customers, I've started to provide market pricing as well. So not just surfacing a restaurant's own pricing back to them, but taking market averages and benchmarks of other suppliers and distributors in their geo that they may not be working with, so they can kind of shop around on Zitti without actually shopping around, which is provides a tremendous competitive advantage for the restaurant there.
So you're seeing the differences in the individual distributor price changes plus the competitive information. That's
exactly.
correct?
Exactly.
Got it. And that's just looking at order guides. You also have this
and then the payment side of the product too. So then when the restaurant actually gets the invoice from the distributor, it automatically goes right into our system.
Okay.
We use a little bit of AI to parse all that data. We then tee up a digital bill, and it's mobile, and we say it's as easy as paying your friends on Venmo. You're just like clicking a button and go to like every single one of your suppliers and distributors. Right. We'll also cut physical checks on the restaurant's behalf.
Oh, wow.
So they don't have to worry about, like these 5 distributors want to receive digital payment. These other 5 are saying I need to receive a physical check. On Zitti, it's just the exact same experience. We do all the kind of heavy lifting for them on the back end.
Amazing. So how does so you would just set an email address for the receipt for the invoices that are like digital, and then like what do you do for like manual invoicing?
So basically, we would say we would just generate a custom email address for you. So it'd be like Matt's Deli 1234567 at app.zitti.com.
Yeah.
And so anytime you receive an invoice from anybody, you would just attach that email address on CC. Okay. It gets sent to you, automatically uploads into our system, and then we parse all the data, and then we tee up a bill for you.
Okay.
So if you could also, if you're receiving a physical piece of paper, it's not via email, you could take a photo on your phone. So it goes into Z, opens up to the camera, and you can just snap right there. So or you can just upload it in the app, in the web app as well. So we kind of have multiple different entry points. The goal is to make it as easy as possible to get everything in one place.
Yeah.
And then those invoices save you a lot of time in making payments. They also give us even more data to inform the order guides, get those sharper, get better market pricing, et cetera. So it kind of all feeds on itself.
Very interesting. How many distributors do you think, like on average, your customers are working with?
Say the average restaurant works with 7 to 10.
That's a lot.
Yeah. They could come, now a distributor would define as anyone with a truck. So there's approximately 15 to 16,000 distributors in the US. About 50% of market share, though, is controlled by 8. So you have the 8 big, like national broadline in a $300 billion industry. So you have the 8 controlling, on a national level. But then you'll have regional, we call it regional broadliners. So those are kind of like a Cisco of California or Cisco of the Mid-Atlantic or something like that carry a fairly similar, if not identical, product catalog there. But then you'll have your specialty suppliers, like some, there'll be specialty meat suppliers, specialty fish ones. It's kind of cool. We've seen for Mexican restaurants, there's specialty distributors that cater just to that. For Asian restaurants, sushi spots, there's some distributors that cater just to that. So Greek restaurants as well, right? So you kind of have like these like the massive regional, massive national ones, then you have your regional ones, and then you have your more local specialty ones. So for us, kind of to create a universal product system on our side with inputs from all those folks, it's a non-trivial exercise.
I mean, I'm envisioning a whole new network here you're mapping.
Yes, absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah.
That's where the tech background side becomes really fun, right? You kind of got to mix that empathy for the end user and really having your ear to the ground on like what exactly they need, and then designing the front end experience as very simple, user friendly, something that's also restaurant owners are on their feet all day long. So it's got to be mobile first. That's absolutely essential.
Right.
Coming from Snapchat, that proved helpful because we're mobile only, basically.
Vertical video.
Exactly, vertical video. 3V, back in the days, we called it vertical video views. But then on the back end, that's where it's all tech. It's a lot of database work.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
So who's the ideal like customer on the restaurant side? Like what is the ideal swath of the restaurant industry you're going after?
So on a high level, the ideal swath is any restaurant that's trying to reduce their food costs.
Everyone's going to raise their hand.
Everyone's going to raise their hand. Then you kind of drill deeper. And so, in the industry, any restaurant group that is about in the 20 to 30 locations or less is considered street business. Anything larger than that, probably 30 to 60 up to 100 is considered an emerging chain, and then over 100 is when you start getting into to bigger chains. So from street business on down, you have this dynamic where they don't really have a supply chain team focused on this. So Chipotle, for example, has a 100-person supply chain team fully focused on negotiating manufacturer deals, negotiating distributor deals, and optimizing price.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but then you have in some of these 20 to 30 unit restaurant groups that do maybe 100 million in sales a year across the group don't have that effort, or there may be one person sitting in a cubicle somewhere, right? So although they may be very well resourced on the consumer facing side, they're very under resourced on that side of things.
Yeah.
So that's where we view our white spaces right now is nobody out there is doing exactly what we're doing with real-time price comparisons.
Right.
And then two, we're filling a gap for these restaurant groups because they don't have someone dedicated to that. So if you're looking at, Zitti's monthly fee is $160 a month. Well, how does that compare to employing a full-time person or multiple people doing that? We view eventually, as we get more customers, we get more automated, we have more insights and build more of the fancy bells and whistles, then you can start to automate a lot of what supply chain teams do for the larger groups. That's what kind of view is down the road. But right now that sweet spot is kind of street business.
And who would you say is this end consumer? Who is like the one guy, if that guy exists, that you're selling to? And then if they don't have that guy, I'm assuming you're dealing with the owner operator themselves, right?
Yeah, so it really depends on the size of the group. Typically, it's a combination of the owner, general manager, and kitchen manager. So the kitchen manager, usually the person who all the chefs or the cooks who in the back, everyone who they report to is usually the person in charge of ordering for the restaurant group. Okay. Because there is a financial component to that person's job as well, right? They're overseeing the kitchen operations, but given that food is tied for the biggest costs along with labor, there's financial accountability to that role as well. So even if the Zitti team is initially talking to the owner, the general manager, in terms of them wanting to implement Zitti in their restaurant group, the kitchen manager is usually the one with their proverbial hands on keyboard actually placing the orders. So they're the ones actually in the app every single day using it.
Got it. And then so you also have like a service oriented part of your business where you have somebody dedicated to helping them. Can you talk about what that looks like? Yeah,
absolutely. So we've it all kind of comes back to that theme of us being the restaurant's outsourced head of supply chain. So we have a head of supply chain ourselves. He's super talented. He worked at Chipotle in supply chain leadership for 8 years, and we hired him from Boston Market, where he was a senior director of supply chain. And then we have a kind of a team of advisors, folks who are either the presidents of large, we have one advisor who's the president of a 60-unit restaurant chain in Florida, and a couple other folks who were VP level leadership in national leadership at Cisco, the food distributor. Wow. So you kind of have like a team of folks around us who are subject matter experts in this area who were then operationalizing that expertise around. So every restaurant that comes on, we do want to make sure they have that white glove service experience. We do essentially, if Matt's Deli is kind of signing up on Zitti, the first thing we'll do before we start producing your order guide is we'll generate a template for you that is completely tailored to your restaurant's needs with all the products there. We don't ask you to do any work. We say we're going to just look at your order history, pull everything together, and give you our best shot at it. So it's very like we're doing the heavy lifting for you, and then you kind of give us your comments on it. Once you sign off, then we start pulling pricing and generating that order guide for you on a daily basis if you need it. So that kind of like a high touch environment, we know that we're dealing with people in the service business. The last thing they want to do is talk to a customer service AI bot, right? That's just not, it just runs counter to that. Maybe in the consumer tech world, that's fine. But in a B2B world where this business is their entire livelihood, we don't take it lightly that we're asking them to pay us on a monthly basis, and we want to respect that and give them that service back that they give their customers every single day.
Very cool. So why, like, taking a step back, like, why do you think there's been so much focus? If we think about like how many restaurant tech companies are, I can't count them. So much skewed towards front of house and the top of the funnel and marketing and reservations and delivery and bringing you new guests, et cetera. But there's only a small handful, I feel like, that really touch back of house and really get into the procurement. Why do you think this is the case, and why does that opportunity exist?
Yeah, so I think that part of it is, typically tech companies are started by tech entrepreneurs, right? Mm-hmm. And people tend to solve problems that they are familiar with, problems that they can see, touch, feel, right? Like every major consumer tech company out there was started because the founder had a specific pain point they went out and wanted to solve. Right.
I was stoned on my couch and I wanted a grilled cheese.
Precisely.
That is the founding story of DoorDash, but I think it was pad thai.
Yeah, there we go. But so when it comes to, so everyone is a restaurant consumer, right? Everyone sits down and wants to go out to eat at restaurants, order food. So the pain point of a better commerce experience, a better food delivery experience, a better ordering experience is felt by the masses. So people with that kind of tech entrepreneur background or the ability to raise capital and do it have probably encountered that consumer facing pain point and probably, if they're going to start a company around it, feel strongly about it. The amount of folks with that skill set that have encountered a back of house restaurant tech problem is far more limited, right? So then you kind of have a much smaller group of people that thoroughly understand the problem. Right. And then even fewer of the folks who understand the problem are motivated enough to want to solve it. It's also not the sexiest problem to solve, right? I think it's really cool to solve a problem that's not sexy because that probably means that it's actually needed. It's actually a problem that's worth solving. That's but I think it makes sense that a lot of folks can gravitate towards the consumer facing stuff, and I think that given my experience at Snap, I feel like there's nothing sexier than like a consumer facing social app. So I kind of got that out of my system. So now I'm ready to attack the more back of house restaurant issues.
Amazing. Love it. Really great stuff. I was about to call you on the Snapchat thing, but now you said, now it all makes sense. So talk about, let's talk about why this whole $300 billion wholesale industry is so opaque. And this idea of fairness and transparency, radical supply chain transparency. What does that ultimately, what's your vision for what that looks like and what it unlocks? And I imagine this is going to upset a lot of the ingrained players, in this space.
Maybe temporarily. So I think about any other industry, right? Take the financial bond markets back in the 70s and 80s, right? So every investment bank was operating as its own independent broker dealer, and they could be selling AAA corporate bonds from different companies, and there was no single way for those to be transparent. So if I'm a bond trader, I could be talking to Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, et cetera, and the exact same security would have been a different price from broker dealer to broker dealer. that makes no sense. It's supply and demand. It's like if it's a bond from IBM, it's a bond from IBM. It shouldn't be radically different in price.
Right.
And that was initially a big problem that Bloomberg came in and solved, was create this transparency across the bond market. And now, next thing you know, like at BlackRock, where I used to work, right, like everyone's on Bloomberg terminals. That's where bond trading is done kind of all in one place, and it really brought that transparency to the industry. This was 40 plus years ago, right? Then you look at retail, same thing, right? Maybe your average maybe mom and pop leather belt store or tailor or shoemaker or whatever else. They may not have initially wanted their prices to be compared directly with the other one down the street, right? They want to retain their customers and kind of keep their own silo. And so then like an Amazon comes around, and initially it's like, well, why do I want to put my products on Amazon and have it compared directly to everybody else? Will that hurt my business? Then eventually it's like, wait a minute, I'm opening up my customer base exponentially, right? So the food market has yet to catch up there. And like I mentioned before, when you have 8 players controlling about 50% of the market share, they are not incentivized at all to be transparent on their pricing. No. And even that's putting it lightly at a minimum. At a maximum, they have their own profitability targets for every single restaurant. So, maybe if they're doing a deal with Chipotle, they have a very thin margin target on them, but because they want Chipotle's business because the volume is so high. If they're doing a deal with DiCicco's Italian Restaurant, they have a pretty healthy margin target on them. So they're charging DiCicco's Italian Restaurant so much more for the exact same thing. I get that some of it's economies of scale, but some of it is a game they're playing on. They're trying to net a certain profit on them. I think that's very unfair because Chipotle, if anything, could actually handle an increase in price. DiCicco's Italian Restaurant could go out of business due to an increase in price. And a lot of times we've seen some behavior out in the market where, one restaurant's working with the distributor and the distributor rep is telling them there's not an online product catalog available. They have to go off a paper sheet that the rep is giving them. And then the restaurant just takes them at their word. And then we work with another restaurant that's buying from the same person, and we find out that distributor does have an online product catalog. So they're intentionally playing this game on a super micro level to kind of retain all the information in one place. So Zitti wants to come in and just lift the veil off of all that, go for full, just radical transparency across the board there, because if you don't have transparency, you're not going to be able to optimize and get a handle on your costs. I think over time, it will benefit the distributors too, because the more restaurants we have on Zitti, then the more distributors that lean into their relationship with us, the more visibility we're going to be able to give them for their products, a la Amazon back in the day. So that kind of initial resistance of not wanting to share and be transparent is totally understandable. If I was in their shoes, I'd probably feel the same thing, but I'm not in their shoes. And we really have the restaurants back, but we also want the industry to be healthier, more transparent, and more prosperous. I think that's good for everybody.
Love it. And I love those analogies of bonds and retail. It's and what that marketplace looks like. So what is this like conversation look like today? We're not there yet, obviously. You're taking a crack at it. So I have a deli and I'm paying a certain price on my cream cheese, and you come in and tell me I can get that same dairy, that same cream cheese for a significant discount from another distributor. Will I call up my existing distributor and start to talk them down, or like what does that interaction look like?
Yeah. So let's say, so back to Matt's Deli in LA.
Wexler's Deli.
Wexler's Deli. All right. Wexler's Deli out here in LA. So they're buying a certain type of cream cheese. Mm-hmm. And let's say it's Philadelphia cream cheese, right? Mm-hmm. First, there's a question of how much do they care that it's Philadelphia cream cheese versus just generic cream cheese? Maybe they care a lot that it's Philadelphia cream cheese. Maybe that's something where they're like, we're very particular about this. It's got to be Philadelphia. Or maybe they're like, cream cheese is cream cheese. We don't care, right? So that is an initial decision point right there that Zitti gets feedback from the restaurant. That's one of the first questions we ask. So then you take another step and say, okay, what distributors are they working with right now? Mm-hmm. Let's say hypothetically, for the sake of argument, they're working with Cisco Performance Food Group, and US Foods, right? And let's say they're buying all their Philadelphia cream cheese from Sysco. So the first thing we'll do is we'll scrape the data of Performance Food Group and US Foods to see if they also carry the exact same type of Philadelphia cream cheese. The restaurant, Wexler's Deli, may not even been aware of the fact that maybe the other two carry the exact same thing.
That's
so
crazy.
first, yeah, exactly. So because these guys carry thousands of products, right? It's hard.
And you're
to
not going to go and look through a physical catalog,
right? Maybe that's just the discuss. You just talk to your rep on a weekly basis, and that's what you say, and you kind of don't really think about it, as opposed to knowing that, wait a minute, these guys carry the exact same thing, and let's price compare. Then maybe Sysco is defining a case of Philadelphia cream cheese on 3 pounds a case. Sysco or US Foods is a case is defined as 4 pounds, and the other one a case is defined as 5 pounds. So now that's additional work to not only find the other product, but then do unit conversions. Then we may also ask them, okay, are you open to non-Philadelphia cream cheese? So then we'll look at their product catalogs and say, oh wait, they actually carry 2 more brands each of cream cheese that they weren't even aware of that we could pull in and do price comparison to. So maybe if the price is the same, they'll go with Philadelphia. But if we're seeing a 20% spread, a 20% decrease in price, maybe they'll say, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go with the brand X cream cheese as opposed to Philadelphia.
Right.
So that's kind of the first one. We give that to them in a super easy to use, digestible order guide on a daily basis. Then you can take it a step further and say, okay, Vesta, Chef's Warehouse, Restaurant Depot, whatever else, Saladino's, all these other folks, maybe they also carry it. And because we're working with a lot of other restaurants in LA, we have visibility into that. So we'll take an anonymized market average. We'll never share one restaurant's data with another one, but we will take anonymized market averages and say, actually, the price of Philadelphia cream cheese in this area carried by these other distributors is this.
Right.
So let's say that's 10% less than what you're getting. At a minimum, the restaurant can go to their current distributor sales rep and ask them, say, hey, I'm seeing that Vesta is carrying Philadelphia cream cheese at 10% less. Like, you need to bring your price down or else I'm going to go with Vesta, right? So that's one point. Or they can say, you know what, open an account with Vesta and just start buying your cheese from them. And that's a decision that we want to empower the restaurant to make.
Yeah.
We're not being prescriptive and telling them what to do. We're just giving them information, arming them with the ability to do what's best for their business.
Fascinating. I'd love to see how this plays out in like a reality TV show. It's like hostile distributor conversations.
Maybe that's the future Zitti Hungry.tv collab is a reality show on that. But you probably didn't expect to talk about cream cheese for that long. But
I can talk about dairy all day and red sauce. Okay, so if I wanted, like, at what point would it make sense to actually, like, I can't imagine switching to another distributor just for one SKU, just to save 10%. Like, there's probably got to be like some grouping of items that make me, like, it's like all my dairy or all my seafood, all my, like all my smoked meats, like, that kind of thing.
It depends on your product mix. So if a product is a meaningful, so for example, if you are a fast casual fried chicken spot, right? The cost of chicken may be over 50% of your menu, of your sales.
Yeah.
So the cost of chicken, that one commodity, is actually worth changing suppliers because it's that important to you.
Yeah.
If it's something where cream cheese is just another thing in yours, then maybe you're bucketing across different ones. You're saying, okay, this distributor can give me better prices on, to your point, maybe dairy and produce, and the other ones are poultry and fish, and then the other ones are grains and stuff. So you can kind of bucket
average,
it that
I can
way.
save this much by just like switching these ingredients over to this thing, and this grouping.
Yeah.
And that's something your like customer success team can help them think through.
Our product does that.
Oh, your product.
Our product, yeah. So you'll see on there's one view where you could see like all of your products and the price comparisons, and then if you say, show me group all the lowest priced products by distributor, and we do that too.
Amazing.
So you can say, okay, here's one. So you can say, okay, today Sysco is winning on price on all these products, and other ones there. So you can kind of group those orders so we can help them meet those order minimums.
Wow. And it's a mobile website, or is it app, or it's an email?
It's a web app, but it's optimized for mobile.
Got it.
No.
Okay, so I want to shift the conversation to payments because I think this is, payments are all the rage.
Payments are important.
And I want to understand, I think, I guess the status quo today, you have a lot of, I guess, weak links in the sense that a lot of people are, still doing things pen and paper, and you have to figure out how to bridge that, right?
Exactly.
So I'm curious, how you do that. Are you doing, what kind of tech are you using to scan these things? Are you using, Mechanical Turk or call centers to kind of parse this data? And then longer term, what do you think this invoicing and payments, accounts payable, all that stuff looks like when you have the ideal kind of tech stack between all these different players?
Yeah. So there's no humans involved in the parsing of our invoices, so it's fully automated there. Essentially, I kind of mentioned earlier a bit how we create these different entry points of our invoices. So it could be you just CC an email, it could be you take a photo on your phone, or it could be you upload it directly. So then it all comes in. We're working with two different OCR companies, so it's optical character recognition. And so they've been great partners. So we basically are taking every invoice that we look at, and we're running the two OCR platforms against it. We take the one with the highest confidence rating, and then our system learns what each invoice looks like. So even if it's the jankiest invoice that has type stuff and the lines are all messed up and whatever, the more those we have in, the more we learn what to look for. And then we pull that into our system, and then we tag it by restaurant. So if you look at, if Wexler's Deli is working with 8 distributors, you're getting 8 different invoices. The OCR is not searching for all the hundreds of distributors that we have access to with different invoices. It's looking at those 8. So it's a lot easier to just narrow down and be just really accurate. And then because we're using two partners, it becomes that much more accurate. Then it all goes in the system, and we tee it up. The first thing we always want to do when we onboard a restaurant is connect all their vendors via ACH so we could pay them digitally. That it's completely self-serve. The vendors get sent a link, and they kind of click through and connect their account there. We'd see about probably 90% of the vendors we work with are completely open to that and are fine with it and prefer to get paid digitally. But then that 10% group, which was probably the thorn in our side in 2022 when we were just getting started, may say, I want to receive physical checks because that's my process. Doesn't need to
the butcher down the road.
Right. And it's look, that's totally their prerogative to say. Again, that's I don't want to take this ivory tower tech perspective. It's hey, if that's your deal, that's your deal, right? Then we don't want to put the restaurant in a position where they're excited to use Zitti, and 9 of their 10 vendors can get paid digitally, but that one is now disrupting this universal payments experience that we want to create for them. So we have an ACH processor that sends payments digitally, and we have a check writing processor that writes physical checks on their behalf. So then when the restaurant is just I don't have my phone with me right now, but they're on their phone, right? The experience is no different from there. They can pick pay through ACH. They can pick pay via check. If it pays to ACH, it goes digitally. If it pays through check, for the restaurant, it's digital, and then we cut a check and send it to the distributor there as well. And so that is, if you look at, if you get really rigorous about, time management, and you think about the amount of time it takes you to write a check, right? And just every little thing, right? I'm writing the numbers, I'm writing letters, journaling it, all that stuff. The amount of time it takes, and you multiply that time by the number of invoices, by the number of checks you have per month, and then you multiply that time by what you're paying that employee per hour. There's a lot of money on the table you're wasting by doing something that on Zitti you can do in seconds. And also on Zitti you can do anywhere in the world, right? Because it's on your phone. Right?
Go on vacation.
Exactly.
Okay, amazing. And then what do you think it should look like? Where do you see this heading? Everyone is just doing EDI type of things where they're everything is flowing digitally, or what's that mix look like?
I think with with all the talk of generative AI going on right now and all these other industries, I think that what is where I believe the industry is heading, which is an area that Zitti, I believe will be furthering in the future, is a much more automated food procurement, ordering, and purchasing experience on the back of house, right? You have this closed loop of, okay, what's my inventory? What are the products that I need, right? How is my menu? How are my sales going against all these products? And so how can I get more scientific around my inventory there? Once you kind of define that and you have this like real-time view of your inventory, then you need to order. Well, then when I need to order, I need to do that in a way that is optimizing for price. That's where Zitti is doing. That's the problem we're attacking right now, right? It's like helping you to streamline your prices in there too. So once you're able to streamline your price and save money on your food costs, then there's the act of actually ordering itself. Right now, that's a very disparate process. You're going on your Cisco app, your US Foods app, your Performance Food, or you're calling your local person on the phone or something like that, right? So you have then that aspect. Then you get your invoice, and then you pay it and write a check. So think about all the time it takes to do your inventory, all the time it takes to price compare, all the time it takes to order, and all the time it takes to pay. That loop, right? I believe, can be fully digital, fully automated, and I think that's where AI can factor in eventually to get smart around that entire process. That entire loop is what Zitti is looking to connect and to solve, right? So right now, because and that kind of gets into, it's just a little bit of teaser into the future of our company, right? Is where right now you're kind of solving these two components to it, right? You're solving the price optimization and comparison side of things, and then you're solving the payment side of things as well, right? So those are both huge time savers. The payment side of things is something that there's not a lot of people do, but a handful of other folks are doing as well. I believe we're doing it better. But then on the price comparison optimization side, nobody else is doing. Right. So by doing those two things, we kind of have this daily active usage on payments because you're paying every single day. Yeah. Then you have your 2 to 3 times a week usage on ordering because you're ordering 2 to 3 times a week, but those 2 to 3 times are critically important. Then the next step for Zitti is we look to automate those other aspects of the process as well and connect it all, which is really exciting.
Yeah. And the inventory piece.
Right.
Really cool. So then what about payments? Like, how do you get into growing your SaaS revenue and adding transactions as part of that? Like, where is there an opportunity for you to potentially make a spread here? Like, I talked to Restaurant 365, and they're making a little bit of spread on the rebates that people are getting back from their wholesalers by processing those payments. So where do you think this opportunity is for you guys on the payments?
There's a big opportunity on payments. So we are rolling out, at the beginning, I think for any early stage startup, you give something away for free and get a lot of tests out and stuff. We'll be rolling out transaction fees this summer on a per invoice basis. At the single restaurant level, it won't be huge to them, especially given all the work we're doing for them, all the time we're saving them. But for us, from a revenue driving perspective, that's a very exciting revenue stream to tap into. So then our revenue model will be a combination of SaaS for the order guides and transactions for payments. Then on top of that, we built our platform in such a way where we can throttle the payment speeds pretty easily. So right now we're giving everyone fast payments where payments settle in 0 to 1 business days. But eventually we can adjust the transaction fee based on how fast we send the money. Right. So you can, if you don't care about your, it going 3 to 5 business days for your cash to settle with your vendor, that could be a much cheaper transaction fee. But if you want it to be, fairly instant ACH, we can do that as well. So we have that capability. Then the next one is potentially, invoice factoring, invoice financing, right? So that's where we kind of put some extended payment terms on those. So if you have, let's say, net 14-day terms with a supplier and you want another 90 days on top of that, we can provide that as well. So I think that's something that's we've experimented with in the past actually, and it's worked really well. So we plan on it's probably more of a 2024 thing, but we do plan on taking that to market more aggressively in the future as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, factoring and PO financing. It's like I've also heard a podcast with Nick Kokonis from talk about kind of the opposite approach, where he was able to negotiate, like he's paying up front for things and then working back his covers, because it's a super fine dining restaurant, so they know exactly what they're going to serve. So he was able to get huge discounts by essentially paying up front or paying a much shorter window. Versus like extending it by 90 days and trying to pay more.
Right. Exactly. And so, not every restaurant has that liquidity to do that.
Exactly.
So then Zitti was able to step up and do that for them, and then create our own relationship with the restaurant in terms there. That could be a great opportunity for us and them.
Right. So it could go both ways, and you can pocket a little bit on both sides.
Right. Exactly.
Really fascinating, and could foundationally change like the economics, the business model of a restaurant.
Precisely.
Really exciting. This is why, the unsexy problems are sometimes the sexiest.
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. So let's talk about the competitors. I was just at National Restaurant Association. That's where we met. I met up with Margin Edge, Restaurant 365. I've also sleuthed around on Pepper and Choco. But I'm kind of curious how you think about that landscape on both like the restaurant side and the wholesaler side, because some of those products are selling to distributors, and then some of those are the wholesalers, and then some of those products are selling to restaurants, right? Like Pepper makes an app for every single merchant vendor.
Vendor, exactly. Yeah. So so there's really two categories. It's the which platforms are selling to restaurants and which platforms are selling to the vendors, to the suppliers or distributors, right? So let's start with the vendors one first. I think what Pepper's doing is awesome. I think there's another company called Cut and Dry based in the Bay Area that's doing something similar, where they are creating digital storefronts for each distributor, and really the Cisco's in US, those top 8, for example, already have their product catalogs online, but the smaller guys don't. The ones who need to get paid via physical checks don't, right? That's an entirely offline thing. So to bring their product listings online to make it easier for a company like Zitti to optimize their price and to help order for them, that's great. I view that as a very complementary, synergistic relationship that Zitti could potentially have with them, because we benefit when the distributor's product catalogs are online, right? We can still do the offline thing, but it's not as fun. It requires more work and OCR parsing and stuff on our side. So now the limitations of companies like Pepper and Cut and Dry and stuff is their customer is the distributor, and so you ultimately can't really go against what's in the distributor's best interest, and price comparison isn't always in the distributor's best interest, right? So they can create these digital storefronts, but to just outwardly price compare, that's not what their customers
Right, they're going to silo every app individually, and they're not going to show you what their other distributors are pricing.
Exactly. So that's the limitation. So they're doing a lot of great work, but that's the limitation there. Then on the other side, so you have like these two kind of categories of order management and inventory management. On the inventory management side, Margin Edge and Plate IQ and Restaurant 365 are really kind of the leaders in that space. They're connecting the POS system. They are helping to manage par levels and really help the restaurant get a firm grasp on bringing their inventory management system to digital. I think Restaurant 365 was kind of like the big incumbent player in there. And then kind of Plate IQ and Margin Edge are a bit kind of more user-friendly versions of Restaurant 365, newer, relatively from a Zitti perspective, they're old, but from a grand scheme of things in the industry are newer players. So that inventory management part is important too. Now, I also feel that is synergistic to Zitti because, like I mentioned, that circle before, the more intelligence we can get on where inventory is at, the more that could be a launch pad for us for optimizing price and helping them to order.
Right.
So I kind of view, the Plate IQ, Margin Edge, R365 over here.
Okay.
And then I kind of view the Peppers and Cheetah to some extent and a Cut and Dry over here, right? Both are kind of on the opposite ends of the extreme, where one is fully focused on restaurant, one's fully focused on distributor.
Right.
This one is purely inventory management. This one is purely kind of digital storefront. The thing about the inventory management platforms, they're not dealing with real-time data. They're dealing with historical invoices that are backward looking.
They don't get like a daily snapshot.
Right. And so that's not the prompting the restaurant to take action, to order smarter, and to optimize price is not it's not their core competency. It's not what they're focused on. And there's a lot of features that need to be built and perfected on the inventory management side of things, and they're very integration heavy. So there's that.
Yeah.
Then, so neither of those two kind of silos I view as competitors. I actually view them as pretty complementary to what we're doing, because we're really connecting everything.
Yeah.
Then you have in the middle, your Chocos, Notch, kind of some of these other folks right there. That's where it gets more interesting, because those platforms really are looking to bring the ordering process online. They are ultimately mobile apps that allow restaurants to place their orders with distributors kind of all in one place, and kind of bringing that historically offline process online. Now, my view on this is that order management in and of itself is not a problem that restaurants need solved.
It's just a feature.
Precisely. So
as a feature, not a product.
Exactly. And it's a more streamlined way to communicate with their sales reps, which restaurants already know how to communicate with their sales reps.
Right.
Why would they need to message them on Choco? They could just text them, right?
Yeah.
Also, Choco's business model is not very commercially sound, because they are essentially giving their product away for free for the restaurants, and they're looking to charge the distributors a fee. So of everything I just described to you, what part of the distributor would want to pay a fee to receive orders for that? There's tremendous value in what Pepper's doing, because it's creating a digital storefront. But to pay
people
Choco,
probably pay more on those digital platforms.
Right. So to pay Choco a fee to receive orders is nonsensical. Right. So these companies, raised a lot of money in 2021, kind of that bubble. They grew really fast. But what I believe the market actually needs is a platform like Zitti to come in, focus on an actual business problem, which is helping to reduce food costs and optimize price, which is a space no one else is doing, using real-time data. Then from there, if we start to build out our own ordering functionalities, which we eventually will, so then the restaurant doesn't have to leave the Zitti app to place an order. They can just do everything in one place. Like, that is, we're I don't want to call it a bolt-on, but like, that is something that we are layering on to solving a core problem, which is reducing food costs. Then we have an entire ecosystem built there. So I believe between our collective team's, expertise of the restaurant's data issues, our team's supply chain expertise, the investors and advisors we have right there, I believe even though we're the youngest company of the bunch, we have a massive head start on these very specific nuanced issue that matters the most. And so that's kind of the three different areas I would break down the various players in the space is inventory management, digital storefront on the supply side, and then some order management in the middle. We probably cross wires the most with the order management in the middle, which is where we're going, but I believe we're solving a problem that actually needs to be solved.
Really fascinating strategy, and really, learning a lot about this ecosystem just listening to this, so thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I feel like on the inventory side, I see like, AI and predictive AI being able to, solve for like out of stocks, which is like a revenue problem, and then also reduce food waste, which is a optimizing margin.
Right.
I think that's huge.
Exactly.
And once you get that whole product suite built, you can really figure out, prematurely like tell restaurants to like stock up on certain things, and then, or maybe have them not stock up as much on certain days so that they don't toss stuff in the garbage at the end of the week.
Right. Precisely.
this has been really fascinating. As we kind of come up towards the end of the combo, I'd love to just get your kind of future hot takes or predictions on, how this whole crazy ecosystem you just outlined, plus all these other POS companies, like kind of consolidate or integrate or buy, acquire various companies like yourself. And where you see everybody kind of moving. From my vantage point, I just wrote a story about DoorDash getting into POS. They're about to launch this, which is pretty fascinating, going from off-prem to full 100% on-prem, getting into the four walls, and companies like Cloud Kitchen's doing the same thing with Otter, getting into POS, and all sorts of first-party ordering systems trying to bolt on middleware and vice versa. So everybody's trying to be everything to everyone and build these constellations of products that all talk together, because operators don't like having 10 different vendors.
They don't like an overly complicated tech stack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So one, I think that companies like, I love what Cloud Kitchens is doing. I think they are giving a lot of opportunity to entrepreneurs who want to get a start in the restaurant space, but don't have the ability to raise $1 to $2 million of debt or whatever else to get a physical location in there, and it gives them the opportunity to kind of get up and running and get their name out there and start working the food delivery apps in a local geo to build that traction before they do that. A company like Cloud Kitchens is almost purely focused on the restaurant operations, consumer-facing side of things. So Zitti working with a company like them is incredibly complementary, because Cloud Kitchens, more than any other consumer-facing company I've seen, cares deeply about the restaurant's margins and actually tries to help them with that as well. So their ability to recommend a product like Zitti to theirs to sit complementary with them, I think is a great opportunity. And Zitti is looking at striking partnerships such as that with more companies, or it could be a complementary offering. I think you are going to see some consolidation in this space as well, because quite frankly, if you're walking the floor, of the NRA, there's just so many POS systems, it's hard to keep track of, right? And so, and each one may have their niche, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're going to have the players like a Toast, like an NCR Aloha. Some of these massive players are going to have to start acquiring some of these other folks just to kind of build that bigger defensive moat around their business. And I think in the back of house side of things, you may see some consolidation there as well, but there's some pressing industry problems that are going to have to be solved by startups, right? So that's something where I've I won't name names, but I've talked to folks from some of these larger companies, and I've asked them about what Zitti's doing, and specifically I've got from them where direct price comparison and bringing radical transparency to the industry is very needed. It's a problem that needs to be solved, but we're not willing to do that. Because
it's too ballsy for a big company.
Precisely. So it's outside their core competency. One, right? Because right now, especially in this more recessionary environment we're headed into, companies don't want to allocate resources doing things that are outside their core competency.
Sure.
So that's one, and which I could respect, right? And then two, it is disruptive. You're rattling cages across the industry, and it's something that a startup like us can be bold and just do it, whereas some of these larger companies maybe not. So that creates a big opportunity for us. So I think that for the more undifferentiated offerings, like all these POS systems, I think you're going to see consolidation. But then I think that for the differentiated offerings, things that are long-standing problems that haven't been solved but need to be solved, those are going to come from startups, because the bigger companies, the bigger incumbents aren't willing to address them.
Makes sense. Yep. The innovator's dilemma.
Yes, absolutely.
Leveling the playing field. Love it.
Yeah.
Dante, this has been really fun. Everything from red sauce to radical price transparency.
Absolutely.
And we always have to talk about Cloud Kitchen, so I'm glad that came up too.
Yeah.
Restaurateurs are listening to this. How can they sign up? Smart computer science geeks that want to get into food tech and solve an sexy problem. How do they work for you? Anybody wants to partner, integrate. Now is your time to promote how people can take action.
Yeah, absolutely. So for any restaurant owner out there, just go to zitti.com, fill out a demo request, and we'll reach out to you promptly. We're actually launching fully self-serve product experience in about a month. So if you're listening to this, by the third week of July or afterwards, you can just sign up for the product directly on our website and go and get started immediately. If you're watching it before the third week of July, we'll still get you going pretty quickly. Just go to zitti.com and sign up. If you're a talented engineer, product geek out there, or just someone that wants to learn more about the technical side of the restaurant industry, you could also fill out a request form on our site. You could also reach out to me directly on Twitter, LinkedIn, DM me. I'm pretty responsive to all that stuff, particularly when it's around folks who have a shared interest in the space. And then same with anyone who wants to partner with us as well. We are, over the next month or two, going to be launching a curated list of preferred partners that Zitti is working with. It's confidential who we're working with right now. That will be public in the next 1 to 2 months. But we do believe that our product is synergistic with a lot of companies out there. And so we're going to be launching a partner ecosystem to really help the restaurants that we're working with partner with these other companies to really round out their tech stack and streamline their entire business. And we look for companies that also share our mission and share our values. And kind of our some to some extent are a little bit of disruptive troublemakers like we are as well. So that too, you could also just reach out to me directly, Twitter, LinkedIn as well.
Okay, awesome. Preferred Zitti stack, the preferred Zitti plate of the meal we're building.
The preferred Zitti meal
on the red checkered tablecloth back.
Yeah.
Backdrop.
Well, in our case, it may be like the crazy neon green checkered tablecloth, but yeah.
Oh, damn, I like it. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for your time, and it's a pleasure.
Of course. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you hear, please hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And if you're curious to get a first-hand look at the cutting edge of food and tech, check out hungry.tv. That's Hungry with no U, where you can join in on live conversations like these or sign up for the free weekly newsletter.